In 1966, an 11-year-old black boy moved with his parents and family to a white neighborhood in Washington. Sitting with his two brothers and two sisters on the front step of their house, he waited to see how they would be greeted. They were not. Passers-by turned to look at them, but no one gave them a smile or even a glance of recognition. All those fearful stories he had heard about how whites treated blacks seemed to be coming true. Years later, writing about those first few days in their new home, he says, "I knew we weren't welcome here. I knew we would not be liked here. I knew we would have no friends here. I knew we shouldn't have moved here." As he was thinking those thoughts, a white woman coming home from work passed by on the other side of the road. She turned to the children and with a broad smile said, "Welcome." Disappearing into the house, she emerged minutes later with a tray laden with drinks and sandwiches, which she brought over to the kids, making them feel right at home. That moment, the young man later wrote, changed his life. It gave him a sense of belonging where there was none before. And it made him realize, at a time when race relations in the United States were still fraught, that a black family could feel at home in a white area, and that there could be real and meaningful relationships between neighbors from different backgrounds. Over the years, he learned to admire much about that woman who lived across the street, but it was that first spontaneous act of greeting that became for him a definitive memory. It broke down a wall of separation and turned strangers into potential friends. Now, that young man, Stephen Carter, eventually became a law professor at Yale, and he wrote a book about what he learned that day and called it Civility. The name of the woman, he writes in the book, was Sarah Kestenbaum, and she died all too young. He adds that it was no coincidence that Sarah was a religious Jew. In the Jewish tradition, he writes, such civility is called Chesed, doing acts of kindness, which in turn derive from the understanding that human beings are made in the image of God. Civility, he adds, itself may be seen as part of Chesed. It does indeed require kindness toward our fellow citizens, including the ones who are strangers, even when it's hard. To this day, he adds, I can close my eyes and feel on my tongue the smooth, slick sweetness of the cream cheese and jelly sandwiches that I gobbled on that summer afternoon when I discovered how a single act of genuine and unassuming civility can change a life forever. This week, in our Torah portion, Isaac, Abraham's son, is ready for a wife. And so Abraham sends his servant out on the hunt. And without any explicit instructions as to what kind of woman Isaac might want, this servant creates a little bit of a test as he approaches a village. See, he says, I am standing beside this spring, and the daughters of the townspeople are coming out to draw water. May it be that when I say to a young woman, please let down your jar that I may have a drink, and she says, drink, and I'll water your camels too. Let her be the one you have chosen for your servant Isaac. By this I will know that you have shown kindness, chesed, to my master. Now, of course, you know the rest of the story. Rebecca appears, she's beautiful, she's smart, she waters the camel, she becomes this powerful matriarch, a mover and a shaker in our people's history. But what I find so interesting about this story, really about so many of these early stories in the book of Genesis, is how Judaism began to flourish. You see, before temples and sanctuaries, before rabbis, before J-Swipe, there weren't so many people who became part of who became part of the Jewish people who weren't born into it. It was easy. You just married someone who was part of the tribe. There was Sarah, who married Abraham and became a very integral part of our people's history. And then there was Rebecca and Leah and Rachel. The list goes on and on throughout our biblical text. The message, if you marry one of us, you are one of us. Now, back when our ancestors were choosing their partners, the intermarriage rate was crazy high. There just weren't that many Jews around to marry. And actually, despite how it feels here in West Bloomfield, it's not all that different today. According to the last report, 80% of Reform-raised Jews who married in the last 10 years married someone who wasn't Jewish. Some of their spouses convert, some of them don't. Some of those couples decide to have Jewish families, and some of them don't. But that 80% is a really important number. It's kind of a crazy number, right? But it's also this unbelievable opportunity to open our doors and our hearts and our community to a whole host of incredible people. And they have to be incredible if our neighbors and brothers and daughters and friends are choosing them, right? So it's up to us to show the kind of chesed that makes Judaism a place where all of these families, all of these people not only feel accepted, but loved and admired and supported. Wouldn't you want to be some part of something like that? I certainly do. And as a rabbi married to a partner who chose Judaism, I understand the complexity in being part of a diverse extended family. It can be messy and eye-opening and beautiful, and it can feel overwhelming to navigate, especially at the beginning. But to welcome with open and intentional arms people of interfaith and Jewish and multi-faith, however you define yourself, backgrounds, is to do sacred and holy work. Because today, we need community more than ever. So to that end, I'm really thrilled to share that I'm participating in something called the Rukin Rabbinic Fellowship. It's a 2-year intensive program focused on deepening rabbis' practices and understanding of working with all different types of interfaith couples and families. Because I know Jeff, who builds the most amazing sukkah in his yard every single year after studying all the rules in the Talmud that most of us ignore to make sure that it's kosher. And I know Emily, whose kids are an active and very adorable part of our community, but who are also immersed in the proud Armenian culture of her family, navigating the boundaries and magic and intricacies that arise as they grow up. And I know Dom, whose mom, an active member of another faith community, loves Dom so much that they came to their mikveh and celebrated their choice by showing up for them in that sacred moment. Now, I could go on forever. I'm sure you could too, naming these wonderful humans who are so much a part of us at Temple Israel, and it feels good and right to actively work on our chesed, our abounding kindness, making Temple Israel a place where strangers become friends. And through this fellowship, I'll be offering a series called Couples and Conversations in January. It's intended to provide a safe environment for couples exploring their religious and cultural futures, those who are building intentional homes and families and lives together. We will cover topics like, can you raise children in one religion while exposing them to another? How can we honor our dual heritages? How can we celebrate holidays and life cycle moments as a family? How can we talk to our parents and grandparents about our choices in an authentic and respectful way? So if you or your kids or someone you know may want to come and gather and talk to build community with others on this same journey, please send them my way. And in the meantime, to those of you who choose to be part of our community, with or without taking the classes and dipping in the mikvah, who come to our outdoor services on Friday nights and drive your children to Hebrew school, who sit Shiva with us, who name their daughters and celebrate their sons' Brit Milah, who drive their children to Hebrew school, who travel to Israel with us, and we say welcome. We say welcome with love and with chesed, with gratitude and with joy. Thank you for being part of our community. We are so, so happy that you are here. Shabbat Shalom.